Hey everyone, happy Wednesday. Hopefully you're doing well.
Yes, Wednesday. We are live on YouTube, on our new YouTube channel. So hopefully you had the opportunity to watch some of our videos. If not, you'll be able to do so afterwards. And thank you for joining us today.
Yes, thank you very much. And there's going to be a Q&A at the end, okay? So we all know that. That's our favorite part. And I want you to get ahead of it. I want you to start asking questions right now, so that way when it's time to when it's time to answer the questions, we'll have a bunch. So what else was I gonna say? I was gonna ask you guys.
Well, I feel like almost a little exhausted today. It's been a full big day, a full big Wednesday already. We just came back from the lawyers, and we just finished signing huge piles of paperwork. So we were there for quite a while, just signing.
It's unreal when you're closing real estate deals, because we have we have 3 deals that are supposed to close today. One of them or 2 of them I think have to go till tomorrow, which such is life, right? But it's unreal in a more and more paperless world how real estate closing is the opposite. Like the files are literally 6 to 7 inches thick. Like it's just unreal.
Yes. So we're closing on some deals. We're closing on our family lake house that we purchased as well. So that's an exciting win for us as well. So
and to anyone out there who thinks that primary residences or personally, your house or your cottage can't do creative financing, we have a second mortgage on it, and we didn't have to come up with any of our own money on the lake house. So we also have creative financing on that one as well. We're utilizing an investor, a lady's RSPs, which are basically secured funds for our American friends.
I love that you say that, because I get that question all the time about, can I use the same strategies when I want to buy my first home, or I live in an apartment, I want to buy a home before I start with real estate. Can I still use creative financing? And the answer is yes.
Real estate is real estate. Whether the rules and they don't look at it as, okay, what is going to be they do look at it, what is the intended use of what it's going to be, but mortgages and second mortgages is fine on different types of real estate. So that's something.
And think of it this way: we've done it on a cottage. And we've done it on a 50-plex and everything in between, right? So it's absolutely doable. So which is exciting. That's exciting for you to know that there's absolutely opportunities out there, because it's doable. Love creative financing, and that's exactly what we'll be talking about today, right?
Yeah, today a great subject. It's going to be seller financing.
we can't cheat, right? We clearly have our little notes here. Yeah. But that's okay. That's how we roll. So what's seller financing, and what should sellers do?
Yeah, and let's start off. So there's different ways of calling this, okay? Some people call it seller financing, owner financing, or vendor take-back. It's the exact same thing, okay? It just depends.
And VTB for vendor take-back as well.
It just depends where you are. Some people like to call it, like I find in the States, it's a lot more seller financing. In Canada, I find it's a lot more VTB. But it's all the same thing. It's basically the owner partaking in helping you finance the deal. That's all it is.
Yes, but it is important to realize those terms. Actually, I was speaking with somebody not too long ago. Again, they said, well, Mel, you said, one word was seller financing, and then you said that 3-letter word, and I wasn't sure what you meant. I'm like, VTB? And he said, yes. So what do you mean by that? I'm like, it's the same thing. It means the same thing. It's just different words, right?
Absolutely. So the one question, and I'm following the order here because I know Raphael is going to put it on the screen, is why should sellers do this? Okay, and this is a huge factor when you are negotiating seller financing with the seller. Obviously, this is a huge factor, and I want to squash that thought of, well, they must be doing it because their building's not good, or there's a problem with the foundation, or there's environmentals. That is not the case. They're not just kind of scapegoating. They're not just kind of trying to exit the deal as quickly as possible because there's an issue. So that is not the case why sellers do vendor takebacks.
No, it's not. I mean, could it be? Of
Yeah.
course, but that could be the case for
Any property.
Any property, whether they sell it privately, vendor taking back, no vendor take back, agent, no agent, so that doesn't matter. But good point. The reason they want to do that is because they benefit from it as well, right? This is a win-win for them, the same way that it's a win for those who are buying the seller financing, owner financing, VTB, or the one who are doing it.
So let's touch on a few points why sellers do this and why it's beneficial to them, okay? And two out of the three deals that we're closing today and tomorrow, two of them have the owner directly holding a second mortgage. 25% second mortgage on... No, sorry, both of them are holding back 35%. So anyway, what I want to touch on with this, why seller financing, why sellers do this, the first thing is taxes, okay? And I want to break this down because people, I'm not going to say confuse them, but they're different. So capital gains. And I'll talk a little bit about capital gains, and I'll just talk a general overall scenario so that it's just kind of clear and easy. So capital gains. Whenever you sell an asset, it triggers capital gains, okay? Like, so if you, and what I mean by that is you bought it, let's use easy numbers. You bought it for 100, you sell it for 200, you've created capital gains there. And that'll be in the year that you sell it. You have to, you're going to have to pay capital gains. That is no ifs, ands, or buts. And for our American friends, yes, there's 1031s where you can use it towards another purchase. But let's not get complicated. Let's just keep it very simple. So the capital gains, anyone who sells real estate that increases the value or that has a profit on it will have to pay capital gains of some sort. That is a non-negotiable. You just can't get away from it. Now, where the seller ends up benefiting, so let's use the $100,000 example, okay? Mm-hmm. So where the seller ends up selling it for $100,000, so they'll pay capital gains on that. Let's do a 80% first mortgage from a bank and 20% mortgage from the seller, a second mortgage. So in that year, they're only going to be receiving the $80,000, which the bank is giving the mortgage for. So, it may not seem big in this scenario because the $20,000 that they are holding back, they technically did not receive the money in that year. Therefore, they do not pay personal income taxes on it in that year. So on this scenario, $20,000, you're thinking, well, it's not really going to be that much tax. But let's do it on $1 million, right? Now you're $200,000. You're going to pay tax on that, right? So you can see how it can benefit.
It's definitely cumulative, especially if they didn't necessarily have an exit strategy,
yes.
Right? What am I going to do? All of a sudden, I decide to sell my property, and
yes.
I don't want to. Why not avoid paying taxes?
Yeah, exactly.
Or defer them, I should say.
Defer them. I know we always say it, but it's defer. The taxes never truly go away. But so let's in that $1 million example where the owner is holding back $200,000. So in that year that they sell it, capital gains, yes, can apply, but now they're going to pay taxes on $800,000, not on $1 million. And that $200,000, there's two things that's going to happen. They now get to spread it over for, I think it's a period of up to 5 years, right? So they get to spread over whatever income they receive over those 5 years. They kind of get to spread it over that. The other thing too is they're making interest. They've become a bank now, right? They're holding the mortgage. They're holding the note. So now they're actually making interest on it, which is very attractive to a lot of sellers.
Absolutely, right?
Because a lot of sellers just say, well, I don't know what I'm going to do with my money anyway, so I don't have any plans for it. I'm going to have to find somewhere to invest it in. And that's when we say, hey, why don't you become the bank? You help us buy the asset. You end up making, you save taxes and you make interest.
Absolutely. It's a win for them. It's a win for us. No doubt about that. Another reason as well, and before I get to it, if you're liking what you're hearing, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell. That way you'll get notified. We go live like this quite often as well, and we release new videos every week as well. So make sure to hit the bell, subscribe, and it also helps the algorithm. So that way, if we see that there's a need for videos, we're going to continue to make them. So thank you for doing that. We appreciate that. Now, the other thing as well is that it can also be very easy for the seller because, especially, and I'm talking off listed deals here, because all of a sudden they're dealing with a serious real estate investor who is willing to close on deals, which means that they don't have to go through the process of listing it, which could mean that they, don't have to pay realtor fees. Now be careful with this. If they choose to, if they rather do that to get their opinion, absolutely they can still do that. So it's going to be a personal choice, but sometimes it is a benefit for them because they don't have to pay realtor fees if it's not already listed. And also that means less headache for them, right? So if I approach somebody, it's off listed, and I talk to them about owner financing, what does that mean to them? Well, we're serious investors. There's less viewings. The tenants aren't disturbed by it, right? There's less in and out within the building as well. And again, it's an easy transaction for the owner.
And a question I received in the last week or so, and at first I was thinking, well, how do I really, what do I think of that? Or how do I want to answer that? And then I was like, well, that applies to everything. And what I mean by that is someone said, aren't you scared? Aren't you worried when you're doing owner finance deals and all this creative financing that the tenants don't pay? And at first I'm like, well, yeah, that's a possibility. And I'm thinking, well, the tenants don't know how you finance that deal. A tenant doesn't say, Mel and Dave bought this building with creative financing. That means I'm not going to pay my rent. You could buy a building with very traditional financing with you putting your own down payment down, and there's still that risk. So it wasn't even a creative financing thing. It was...
The risk is there.
When
the reality,
you're dealing with people.
It's going to happen at some point. One tenant doesn't pay rent, whether it's, they just don't want to, they're just a bad tenant, or life happens, or whatever, it's going to happen at some point.
Well, exactly. And that's why I reiterate to the person, it's real estate. It has nothing to do with creative financing, right? So, because people get caught up in those things. And even the sellers, right, will say that. And the sellers will ask, well, what happens if someone doesn't pay you rent? Exactly. We have contingency plans. I've underwritten it in the deal, right? And then the other thing you can say to the seller is, okay, let's say you decide not to give us a second mortgage for owner financing. Mm-hmm. You're going to go put it in the stock market? Well, you could play that game all day long, right? The what ifs and, well, is that a sound I don't know, right? So that's kind of why should the seller do it? That's kind of reiterating the pros and cons, obviously, and squashing some of the myths. The myths. There, yeah, that's the word. I was going to say naysayers, but yeah, the myths, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, breaking down the process. So it's going to come down, I'm thinking of two different scenarios here. Oh, I think our mic, there we go. So it comes down to the two different scenarios. If there's realtors involved or if there's no realtors involved, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you're going to deal directly with the seller or if the realtor will. But the process is going to be, you're going to have conversations, right? Whether it be you or the realtor, that's going to be the process. You're going to need to ask the question and have a conversation.
Yes, and if you're dealing with a realtor, this is why we always say it's so important to find an investor-focused realtor, to have that communication piece, because if they don't understand it, how are they supposed to explain it to the other realtor who then has to explain it to their client, right? So, and having a couple properties, just because a agent has properties themselves or rental properties doesn't mean they understand creative financing. Mm-hmm. These are two different things, and they need to understand it and also be wanting to somewhat promote it as well, because if they're against it, you're not going to be able to succeed, and especially when you're not able to communicate directly with the owner.
Yeah. Okay, and think about this. I want to really break down the process, and I want to simplify it for you because it is simple, okay? And then once you understand it, you're going to see it's not rocket science. It's just getting it, okay? So owner financing. Let's break down a vendor take back to a T. And let's use easy numbers. I like 100. So this $100,000 property, you're going to find a financial institution. You're going to negotiate everything. And in the end, the lawyers take care of everything. The attorneys will take care of everything. I just want you to understand the concept. $100,000 property. You're going to find a financial institution that's going to give you a first mortgage, okay? And let's say they give you 80% loan to value, which comes up to $80,000. So that's your first mortgage, okay? Now the owner, let's say, has this building paid off or has $50,000 equity in it, because they have to have equity to be able to hold the mortgage, right? That mortgage is basically their equity. So in this scenario, the $20,000, the second mortgage, which is in turn your down payment, they will hold that as a mortgage. So on closing, the bank will forward the funds, right? They'll advance the funds, they'll advance financing to the lawyer. The lawyers and the attorneys take care of it all. They put the mortgages on the property. They do all that, right? So you don't have to stress about any of that. So the funds get advanced to the lawyer. The lawyer sends it to, the other lawyer to pay out the seller. So on closing, the seller only gets what the bank advanced, which is in this scenario, the $80,000 minus the realtor, minus the attorney fees, closing fees, land transfer, XYZ, taxes, all that stuff. Okay, so that's all they get. Now, the other portion that they had of equity, it literally transforms. So instead of getting that money, they don't see it. You don't see it either, and it becomes in this scenario a second mortgage. So that's pretty much how basically it happens. So again, if you have questions below, guys, or please put your questions below.
And I should comment as well that if you're interested, tomorrow we're going live. We have a webinar tomorrow evening. We're going to be going live about 60 to 90 minutes, but you have to pre-register, but it's completely free.
Yep.
Now, just comment below, say, please send me the link. And I'm trying to think with YouTube, I'm sure there's a way to send them a link for that.
Yeah, sure there is.
I'm sure I'll figure it out. Otherwise, DM me on any other social media platform if you want to pre-register for that as well. So just comment below and I'll make sure to, I can reply with the link. So I'll do that. So comment below and I'll include the link where you can pre-register, join us tomorrow night. And we're going to be talking about this in even greater detail.
Yeah.
We're going to break down
we'll give you examples
like on a PowerPoint presentation type of thing where it's a little bit more visual. Because if you're like me, especially when I started, I was like, what? Like I need to show me numbers like on a spreadsheet or on a whiteboard. So anyhow, so if you want to pre-register, comment below and we'll send you the link.
Yeah, exactly that. So again, if you have questions on the process, please let it know. And I'll try and explain that scenario better. Now, I was going to touch on something with the process. So it's basically that simple. There's something I wanted to mention about the down payment and the equity that they hold over. Yeah, the equity is important. So, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, and this is why not everyone can do it, right? So let's use an example here. Let's say let's use the $1 million building example. Let's say you're buying an asset for $1 million. The bank is giving you 80% loan to value. Okay, so $800,000, and then you're saying, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, can you please hold 20% second mortgage or vendor take back of 20%, so $200,000. And the seller says, actually, no, I only have $100,000 equity in it, right? So they can't hold a bigger mortgage than the equity they have in it. So that's important as well. So sometimes, usually, if someone just purchased a building, they might not have that equity in it enough to do it, or they might have just put down 20%, and when they purchase it, maybe they sell it a year later for whatever circumstances happen in their life. And like in the scenario earlier, I told you that the sellers are holding 35% vendor take back. So, maybe they might not have the equity in it to do it. So that also comes into play. Sometimes they have plans for that money.
Absolutely.
Kids are going to school or something, right?
Exactly. And the pieces as well, you can always remember as well, because we're all about buying properties using that around money and no joint venture partners. And when that happens, so if the owner doesn't have that full 20 or 25%, let's say it is 10%, doesn't mean we're not going to buy that property if the property makes sense and if we have a clear exit strategy on how to pay back the lenders, because this is where you can use a variety of tools and strategies, right? And we'll cover all that in our live session tomorrow night as well.
Absolutely. So yeah, put some questions below, guys, please, if you have some on any of the subjects. So next, why is it good for the sellers? So we touched on that kind of, why do sellers do it? I guess we kind of blended both of them.
We did.
But yeah, honestly, it becomes, and I don't think we touched on the other one. I think you mentioned, Mel, but it's succession planning. We've come across deals that by us doing owner financing with the seller, we've actually saved them or helped them, right? We become their solution to the problem. And through the ways that we find deals, we have creative ways to find the deals and find these sellers. We come across them at a time where they're fed up, they're done. They don't want the asset anymore. It's no longer an income producing asset. It's become a headache or a problem. So sometimes you'll come across that. Like, let's use the lady as an example.
Yeah, it truly is for the sixplex.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had purchased a sixplex. That's when we had purchased the 12 in 12
Yeah, 12
months.
and 12. 2017.
Yes. And her husband passed away, and this was not her passion. It was her husband's passion. Now she has this property that she no longer wants to hold, but didn't really have a plan. So then Dave and I were like, I'll have the conversation, speak with her about owner financing. And and she was very grateful because it became a win-win, right? She had the opportunity to defer her capital gains. She made interest on her money. We of course made sure to pay her back early. So this is where it can become a true win-win.
Yes.
And the nice thing about owner financing as well, what we've found is that then you build relationships with them. And you have a relationship with them, which means, let's say we borrowed $200,000 VTB with Mrs. Lender, and we pay her back, let's say in 3 years. Well, now she may or may not need that money, but she certainly knows us, trusts us a little bit more than at the beginning, and may want to put her money to work. So this is where we can now take Mrs. Owner Finance, Mrs. Seller Finance, or VTB, and turn her into whether we use her as a promissory note or her funds as a promissory note to help fund the next deal, right? So we've done that numerous times because they get to know us, they see that we don't miss any payments, they see that we pay them back early, and that we are about win-win, right? We have to win, but they absolutely have to win as well. So there's future opportunities as well from people who do owner financing, and then once you pay them back, they may also want to become a lender.
Yeah, you're 100% right, Mel, and it's people like doing business with people they know that they've had success with, right? Mm-hmm. So you've just proven to them that you have a great strategy. You're able to pay back. You obviously did your
take care of the property,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
They get to see it. Don't you think they keep an eye on it? Of
Oh,
course
for
they do,
sure.
right?
I would.
I would too. I drive by and keep an eye on it, so they see what kind of tenants you've had in. They see what you've done to the property, if you've done any new work, or if you've let it go. Well, guess what? Maybe they won't want to do deals with you, right? But if you repay them back, you always pay them on time. If for some reason something happens and you missed a payment, you communicate right away with them, you make it right, and you take care of the property. They'll see what kind of landlord you are, or investor, whatever you want to call yourself. They'll see what kind of person you are and how you take care of your properties, and you can absolutely make it a win-win as well.
Absolutely. Okay, so the last one here before we get to the Q&A is how it allows you to scale. And speaking of scaling, please do me a favor, subscribe to our page. Mel and I want to scale this YouTube page, and we want to keep doing lots of videos. So yeah, please do that if you haven't. We greatly appreciate it. Yeah, and also give us ideas for different videos.
Absolutely, and you'll get notified because we're gonna keep. If you like what you're hearing and this is helpful, then we'll keep doing these kind of live sessions as well, and you'll get notified when we do go live. So
yeah,
awesome.
So how it allows you to scale. This honestly,
game changer.
100%. A game changer isn't even strong enough of a.
It didn't just change the way that we buy real estate. It changed our lives.
Yes, you're bang on.
It changed our lives.
And if you think bigger picture, it will change the lives for our children.
Yeah.
Well, it has with our lifestyle, but then also they're going to inherit a much bigger portfolio than if we were saving up to put in the down payments ourselves the traditional way,
Absolutely. And that's the thing with scaling is that you become limitless. You can do that once a year. You can do that 12 times a year like we have. You can buy one property, you can buy 50. Yeah. Like, you become limitless. You keep all the profit. They're not on title in such that they're splitting the appreciate. I know that's a tricky one. We won't get into that one too much.
No, you're bang on. I'm thinking of something else. You're bang on, Mel. No, they're not on title. They don't own it.
They don't own it.
They're like the bank.
Yes.
They're a mortgagor. I always forget.
Exactly. You keep the appreciation, the equity, the cash flow, and then you're able to scale. And I mean, change your lives. We both quit our job. Dave was a full-time firefighter, had what they call the dream job, and you're able to quit in your early 30s.
They call it the lottery job.
Yes.
Because thousands of people apply.
And then you quit it.
And then I quit.
And then you quit.
Anyway, and I don't regret
But
it.
it was a freedom to do that,
100%.
right? No more being away from the family, nights and weekends, no more overtime, all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%, Mel. You know what? That should be a title. We should do a show on that one time. Just different things. Now, the scale thing, as you were talking, I thought of two different things, and I just don't want to forget them. One of our friends who does joint ventures, and I couldn't have said it any better. The way he said it, obviously he was passionate the way he said it, and he said, I want to learn how you guys do creative financing. And we said, well, and I'm not going to say his name here, but I said, how come? Like, you have 12 or 13 properties doing joint, maybe it's more than that, I forget, doing joint ventures, successful, was able to leave his job as well. And I said, well, what's up? Like, is it, what's going on? He said, I want to learn what you guys are doing with creative financing because there's no money more expensive than joint ventures.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you mean? He said, you're giving up half of, and depending on your structure, right? You're giving up equity. You're giving up half a building or 60-40 or 70-30, whatever your split is, you're giving up equity. And that is more than any interest. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so
especially
true.
The interest, we pay it back within a couple years typically, and it can vary depending
and
on
then you're
property.
done.
And then you're done.
Right? And you apply it to other buildings, but that particular asset...
And you still cash flow it from day one.
I know.
Otherwise, you should not buy the property.
Yeah, exactly. So it seems like it's a short-term interest and all that, but then again, for the next 25 years after that, or when your kids own it, they're not sharing equity with anyone else. I don't know. When he said that, I was like, wow, that's just, it's incredible. And it's so true when you look at it. So I'd much rather pay interest and high interest than pay equity.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, the other thing that I was thinking, Mel, when you were chatting is just the scalability. And if you're following us on other platforms, you'll know. So these three deals that we're closing today and tomorrow, 21-plex, 14-plex, and the family cottage. None of our own money, all some owner financing, some creative financing, all this stuff. And I know we're kind of saying how to scale, but 6.6 is that you're going to power of sale the building or you're going to foreclose on it. And it's backed by real estate. Again, that's what hopefully that answers your question, Thomas.
And Anna has a question. I believe Anna's part of our action mentoring program. Anna, typical rates for second mortgage. Honestly, Anna, it depends. It depends on the length. It depends on the property. It depends what the deal can sustain, right? Does a VTB higher at 6, 7, 10, 3%? What makes sense, what doesn't make sense? So you have to make sure the deal makes sense. If you ask us during our live session, we'll be able to, I'll give you some examples of
I'll keep the question aside, Anna.
Yeah, we'll put it aside and we'll answer
Anna's part of
what we've been paying. So you get a little bit of inside scoop for being part of the action mentoring program.
Okay, yeah. So Anna wanted to know, Raphael, do you want me to repeat the question? Okay, Anna was asking the typical rates for second mortgages. Yeah, so Anna, because you're part of our action family, we'll answer it live at 1 p.m. with you in the mentorship program. So I'm going to put it right here aside. But basically, to everyone else that's listening, I just want you to have this philosophy and I say it, and we do an exaggeration of a number to show you. I don't mind paying someone $1 million if I'm going to make 3. Okay? So just look at it that way. Look at the real estate.
And if you have your exit strategy.
Yes, thank you. So
that's why we're 2, right?
I love that we're 2. It's yin and yang. We pick up where we're. But yeah, that's the thing is, if the deal makes sense, you have an exit strategy, and you're going to pay everyone back. And again, I'm not saying I want to pay higher interest, but if it gets the deal done and it makes sense within certain guidelines, right? Then look at bigger picture. You're going to pay them back in 5 years. Then you're going to have this asset for the next 25 years, 30 years, whatever. You give it to your kids. It might be 60 years. Who knows? But it's a short-term pain for a long-term gain. It's not even a pain. It's just different strategies to apply. But yeah, the interest rate is just part of the overall picture of the deal.
Yes, awesome. So let's take one more. There's one more question here, Joshua. How do the banks view VTB? Are they all banks receptive to VTB? No. They are not. So it kind of has to do a bit with what you were just discussing about, yeah, you might end up, or you will have to go to a view lender. Does that mean a little bit higher interest? Yes, typically that's what it means. But again, it enables you to buy properties, none of your own money, able to scale, and all these benefits that we explained earlier. So yeah, so the banks are not typically receptive to this.
Yeah, no, and that's something, Joshua. You as a real estate investor, you've got to do your homework. You got to, get out there, call a bunch of institutions, ask them if they're open to vendor takebacks and creative financing, and don't. How do I say this? Don't try and put a square into a round hole. You know what I mean? Like if they're don't go barking up that tree, right? If they're a no, and you want to do vendor takebacks, then again, don't try and make it fit, right? Just go somewhere else where it will fit and they do understand it.
Yes, awesome. So that wraps up the questions. So join us tomorrow because we are going to be, like I said, we're going to go live. We're going to go live for about 60
minutes. And it's 8 p.m. Eastern time.
8 p.m. Eastern time, but you do have to pre-register, so make sure to indicate that in the comments below. I'll send you a link where you can pre-register, and we also will take some Q&As as well. We're going to talk about how we bought these 100 units in the past 2 months, so this is new. We've just finished doing it. Literally went to the lawyers today, like I said earlier, if you're on from the beginning. So we're going to go and break that down. We're going to show you an example and talk about all of that and the mindset and everything else, that the whole picture of how we were able to do this. So I hope you join us tomorrow. Thank you so much, YouTubers, for watching us. Thank you so much if you're listening from your car or you're working out and you're listening to us wherever you are as well. We very much appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And hopefully that answered some vendor take-back questions, guys.
We'll see you next week.